And he argued that military academies exist to solely develop troops, not professional athletes. And I was like, bro, that is some bullshit to say. Basically saying that you can agree, you can disagree. What I think he's basically saying is, if you're thinking about going and being a professional athlete, don't come to Army, don't go to Air Force, don't go to Navy. Go somewhere where you think you can pursue a professional athlete career.
Earlier this month, the provision was set in place by the government to not allow service academy cadets to delay their military services to pursue professional sports opportunities. This will end and starting fiscal year 2023. The change is included in the National Defense Authorization Act, which has been approved by Congress and is awaiting the president's signature. Under this new rule, any agreement a cadet enters into to play professional sports before serving their military obligation will be considered a breach of their agreement to serve as a military officer. It is not yet clear on how this law will impact specific individuals, but we do know it is waiting the president's signature and is set to be set in place immediately. My boy Sticks, what are your thoughts on this change, and how do you think it will affect current and future service academy athletes?
Man, so I noticed this a couple of weeks back. It's a linebacker that plays for Army. His name is Andre Carter Jr. He is projected to be a first-round draft pick. And whenever this bill was passed earlier this month, it kind of, deterred his dream of playing professional sports a little bit. And which I think is kind of messed up, man, because throughout the years, you were able to go play football there. And if you got the opportunity to go play professional sports, you were able to do that and then serve your time afterwards. Right. And, but there has been a couple of times in the past where, like, Roger Staubach, the famous quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, he spent 5 years serving before he even started his Hall of Fame career in the NFL. So it's kind of like, over the years, it's kind of been wishy-washy on how they wanted to actually do it. But here recently, you've been able to go pursue your professional career as far as sports prior to you actually having to serve your years. But now with that defense bill, with it being a breach of your service obligation, like, a lot of guys who have those aspirations, actually have that talent, are going through the situation where, oh my God, well, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? And I think it's kind of messed up. And he had a bit, and Andre Carter had a really good point. Like, he was thinking about going through the transfer portal and actually going to another school, but he stayed at Army because he has loyalty to the school and loyalty to the nation, as far as possibly at some point, living his obligation as a cadet. But that same loyalty wasn't given to him whenever this rule was passed. So he kind of made him and his family and the coaches made an uproar about it a little bit, and kind of was like, hey man, this ain't fair to him because he has first round talent. So it's not fair to him to go pursue his professional career.
I'm glad you actually, because when you said it, I was like, dang, I meant to look that up. But do you know if they can actually transfer from Army or whatever, the Air Force or Navy, to go to a school for whatever sport that they're playing? Because if they've signed that, well, I was just going to ask if they've signed that agreement, and the agreement says that they can't play professional sports after college until they've done their whatever time served,
right?
Then are they able to then transfer? That's a question I think we
might need to look into. I believe that he can. I think your obligation to service isn't until after you finish your schooling. After you finish your 4 years, after you graduate, that's when you have the obligation to go as a cadet or a midshipman. But up until I think while he's still playing and while he's still a student athlete, if he wanted to go through the portal and go to, say, Clemson or Florida State or Florida, he could do that. So he can transfer, and without any obligation to have to do that after he graduates, because then at that point he's not a cadet anymore. Now he's a regular student athlete at another university. That's what I believe. I'm not 100% sure about that, so we're gonna have to check into it. But I believe that he is eligible to go through the portal prior to him graduating from Army or Navy or Air Force or something like that. So I think he is able to do that. And he said he was going to, but he ended up staying because he was loyal to the university and to his obligation to serve his country.
And what year is he?
He's a senior.
Oh, so he has no more eligibility.
No more. Exactly. Okay. He's a senior. Unless he gained a year from COVID like everybody else had. But He's a senior at Army right now, and he's projected to go first round draft pick. He's the number. I think Mel Kiper has him as a number 20, the number 2 linebacker in the actual draft.
Oh, oh man, that sucks.
Exactly. So he's a first round draft pick. So if they didn't, so but he was actually granted the let me find out so I can say it right. He was actually granted a legacy exception, so where he can actually go and enter the draft.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so the rule says, and let me make sure I'm quoting this correctly. Carter is entering. He was considered entering the transfer portal after the 2021 season, but decided to stay at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point because of the 2019 rule that allowed athletes to defer service until they after their pro career. But it says that under the new provision, athletes who graduate after 2025 must complete a minimum of 2 years of immediate military service before they can turn pro at any sport. So everybody prior to 2021 can get that legacy exception, but everybody after July 2021 has to
Mhm.
serve in a minimum of 2 years before they can try to go pro.
So they've put in place. So then, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They put in place to where those that are already in school will be able to stay under the same rules that are already in place, but those that
Mm-hmm.
enter at that time won't be able to take advantage of that rule that's already in place.
Exactly. So
Okay.
people who are coming out now have that legacy exception. Everybody after them got to serve that time, and
Yeah.
to defend your country. So, which is I think it's to me honestly is I think it's whack. I mean,
Say how
you
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 feel.
you went to these universities, you went to Army, you went to Navy, you went to Air Force with the understanding that after you graduate, you're going to be a cadet. You
Hmm.
understood that you're going to be a soldier. But with these gentlemen or women or these ladies and gentlemen who have the professional skill to go professional,
Yep.
they should be allowed to do so, especially whenever there's millions of dollars on the table for them to change their life and change their family's life and
Hmm.
change their lineage's life. They should be able to take the opportunity to go pro and actually play pro sports. I don't see why the government is forcing them to be a cadet if they have this talent. But that's just my opinion. What you think?
Yeah, so I completely agree with the last part of what you said and completely disagree with the ruling or this bill that's going to be passed. Um, However, we know that a couple of parties will argue this differently, right? You have a camp that says um, kids shouldn't be going to school in the first place just to play sports. They should be worried about their
Mm-hmm.
academics. You have another party that'll say they should be concerned with the country more than their professional career or any professional league. You also have
Mm-hmm.
this last small pocket of individuals that'll say kids knew what they were signing up for when they decided to go to Army, Navy, or Air Force, right?
Right.
Those arguments, there is some validity in those arguments.
Mm-hmm.
However, we know that there's a small percentage of individuals that have the opportunity to make it professionally in this country.
1%,
And
bro. 1%.
1%, right? Or somewhere around there, 1%
Mm-hmm.
only has the opportunity to make it professionally. And that's being drafted in any round, getting undrafted, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Percentages are small. We also know that there's a small percentage of Division 1 athletes that actually play sport, or Division 1, but there's a small percentage of the Division 1 population that actually
Mm-hmm.
plays sports for their school.
Right.
So you're telling me, as these service academies, that I only have 5% of my school that plays sports for me. Out of that 5%, only 1% has the opportunity to make it. And I'm going to tell them, if they do have the opportunity, no, you can't go because you have to serve your country.
You have an obligation
I
to your
mean,
country. Right.
I mean, I get that, but what I would rather, if I'm a service academy, I would rather have the opportunity to have some individual in some capacity down the line than to not have an individual at all. Because this, what's going to happen is kids are going to see that obligation that they have to go no matter what to serve their country for a short amount of time after college. And they're going to say, Nah, I'm not gonna go. I mean, honestly, you
That's
and I
funny.
went through it when we were recruited. Because I mean, we both were recruited by these service academies. I mean, I love America, but I had no intention of ever going into any type of military or whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
But that was one of the reasons why I automatically turned it down anyway, because I'm like, I don't want to go and serve in the army or the navy or whatever the case may be. And we respect soldiers, we respect midshipmen, we respect Air Force. What is it? Is it cadets, pilots, Air Forcemen?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Cadets and midshipmen. Hmm.
right. We respect all of them. We love what they do. We respect them for what they do for our country. It's just not for me,
Right.
and I'm not afraid to say that. Uh,
Likewise.
so, so if I am the government, if I'm these academies, I would rather have some people in place than no people in place. And like I
Hmm.
said, it's only a select few that have that opportunity to be um, in the NFL or the NBA or the Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, whatever respective sport that is. So you're talking about a small number of individuals that you're probably going to miss out on. But what we know and why I think this rule has been put in place is we know that recruiting as a whole for the army and military has been down the last couple years. I mean, I think
Hmm.
last year they beat their quota, their goal by 200 soldiers,
Hmm.
and then the year before that, the army just beat their goal by 53 soldiers.
Mm.
So we know that as a whole is down. So if
Hmm.
they're just barely beating their quota, and we're talking about a small percentage of individuals have the opportunity to make it to the pros, that small percentage could be a big difference to them making their goal or not.
That's a bit and I'm glad you brought that point up because, and just to take it a step further, not even with the quota of the army itself, but what about these actual sports programs for these universities? So you mean to tell me, and to the point you made about me and you deciding to go to college and opposed to going to the military, you know what I'm saying? We were athletes, so we were destined to go anyway. But honestly, and really good at exceptional athletes, but in opposed to going to the army, we decided to go to college. So say
Hmm.
you have a guy who is say 2 3 star athlete, right? That is being recruited by Army. It's probably Army is probably one of his best decisions that he could go to. He can either go to Army or he could go to Winston Salem State. Not nothing about Winston Salem State. I love y'all. Y'all HBCU. I love y'all. But
Hmm.
Army is probably a better program, probably better academic program than Winston Salem, right? So
Hmm.
if you tell this athlete that if you go to Army and you ball out on the football field and you are projected to go number one, you can't go to the league because you have to serve 2 years. That 3 star is going to go to Winston, I believe, because
100%.
I think these programs are going to lose out on a lot of good recruits to keep their programs afloat, and they're going to be the not to say that Army and Navy and Air Force have not been good programs over the years, but historically they've been getting beat up by a lot of these bigger schools, and you need some of these good recruits to be able to come to your university or your program to be able to compete with some of these colleges, especially whenever you're independent. So
Hmm.
telling these athletes that have aspirations to go to the league that if you come here you can't go to the league right out of college, you're going to lose those athletes, and
Yep.
it sucks for the program and it sucks for these students. So, and not to say that going and serving your country is not a good thing to do, like D'Lo said, we respect all of y'all doing a bigger thing than me because I couldn't do it myself. But
Hmm.
a lot of kids, that's how I was growing up. That's how D'Lo was growing up. We had aspirations to be professional athletes, and we got damn close to doing that. So a lot of these
You
kids coming
closer
up
than
now
I.
have
We have that conversation all the
just
time.
just, just a little bit though, just a little bit. But
Yeah.
but but these kids have these same aspirations that we had as kids, and for them to not be able to do that and then come back, if they do their 2 years in the military and they come back and they try to go to the league, they already have 2 years of film that they don't have. They have 2 years of not playing organized sports. They have 2 years of not working out towards their craft. Now they're 2 years behind in something that they have always dreamed of being. And I don't think that's fair to
Right.
these athletes. So you're going to lose a lot of these 2 3 even 4 5 star athletes because they don't want to come to your university and then have to be obligated to go to the military. I don't think that's fair to them.
Yep.
I
No,
don't think it's
it's
fair to them.
definitely not fair. It's definitely not fair, and um, I think the military academies will feel the blunt of this blow,
Mm-hmm.
or is it the brunt? blunt
Brunt.
or
It's
brunt,
brunt.
whatever. Yeah,
Brunt.
the
Yeah.
brunt of this blow uh, immediately
Uh-huh.
because in 2003 they put together a committee to figure out how they can be more competitive in their
Hmm.
sports, and
Right.
one of the main um, outputs from those meetings from that committee was allow the athletes to go professional immediately. And
Hmm.
I think it was put into place, may if not the next year, the year after that. And Army, I played Army when I was in college.
Hmm.
Always tough. They all pretty much run the same type of offense. They run this
Yeah, that wing
wishbone
T.
option type
Yeah.
wing T,
Yeah.
yeah, option type offense, and it's hard on the defense because they have to be so disciplined without throughout the whole game, and they just chew up the clock. For those that don't know football, possession of time is key, especially if you're scoring a lot, you're getting a lot of yards because you're keeping the
Hmm.
ball from the offense, the other team. So if you put that type of offense with top tier athletes, and we're talking about football because Sticks and I both play football.
Hmm.
He played basketball as well, but you put that type of athlete in that type of offense, it just makes it that much better. And so,
Yeah.
especially with football, because it brings in most of the money for programs, individual programs, you you take those athletes out of those positions for those teams, and then they go back down to being not that competitive. And
Hmm.
Air Force is they won 10 games 2 years in a row.
Hmm.
Army is always competitive. I think they won like 7 or 8 games this year. Navy
Hmm.
also. So you take those players out, and I won't say it again. This is my last time saying it, but you take those players out of those programs, and they just go to being 4, 5 win programs, and just somebody that you put on the schedule to show respect to the country, but then also to
Right.
get an easy win for homecoming or whatever the case may be.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And it's funny because there is, I don't know if you saw the report, but there's a Republican, Mike Gallagher, the Republican from Wisconsin, that was one of the founders of this amendment of this rule to do away with the deferment. And
Mhm.
he argued that military academies exist to solely develop troops, not professional athletes. And I was like, bro, that is some bullshit to say. And then he goes on to say, talking about some, I'm gonna read this quote. When a midshipman or cadet opts to put off their service to obligation to pursue a career of professional athlete, in effect, it means they remove an opportunity from an individual who's committed to carrying out their service obligation immediately following graduation. So that means there are thousands of patriotic Americans who do not have the opportunity to attend military service academy because of these professional athletes.
That's
Like,
a lie.
bruh. I was
I
like,
I
bro,
don't
what?
agree with
Like, what
it
are you talking about?
exactly. One, I don't agree with that because um there you have to be really smart to go to these schools.
One hundred
So
percent.
yeah, I mean, you have to be really smart, especially I don't know about Navy and Air Force. I would imagine, but Army, I know I've been to West Point. You have to be really, really smart to go to that school.
You do.
On top of being an athlete. So there may be 1,000 patriots that want to be in the Army. They're gonna have to go about it the regular way. They can't go. They're not gonna go to West Point and be a part of that class in order to get into the Army. So
Mhm.
that statement, okay, it may be some validity in it. That the individuals that decide to pursue their dreams of going to the NFL or NBA, whatever the case is, may have taken an opportunity from one or two individuals that were smart enough to get into the West Point, into that
Mhm.
academy.
Mhm.
But we know statistically n- not a lot of individuals can go to West Point and then will continue to be a part of the cadet class that is going to be in the Army, because it's also hard to stay at West
One
Point once you get there,
one
getting up
hundred
at 5 o'clock in the morning.
What? Yeah, bruh.
it is not easy. On top
Not
of
easy.
being an athlete, you also have to do all of the grueling stuff that they do on a
That the
regular
cadets
basis
do.
as a regular
Mhm.
student. So
Yep.
I mean, let's not I'm mad at he said that. That's
Yeah,
terrible that he
let's
said
not
that.
discount these guys for sure. Because, but so do
Right.
you think? Do you think he's so what I think he's basically saying, and you can agree, you can disagree. What I think he's basically saying is, if you're thinking about going and being a professional athlete, don't come to Army, don't go to Air Force, don't go to Navy. Go somewhere where you think you can pursue a professional a professional athlete career. That's what I think he's saying. But he also goes in to say, he says, I'm glad that the updated text grandfathered those players in, like
Mhm.
like Mr. Carter. He was like, but moving forward, there is so much more work to be done to ensure our military service academies are laser focused on their core, which is training the next generation of warfighters, not professional athletes. He was really
I
this. He kind of pissed me off whenever I read this, because I was like, "What is he talking about?" Like, bro, like
yeah,
if these guys are at your university, they have the opportunity. Let
right.
them, because whenever they graduate, they still have that obligation to serve the country. So if they do 4 or 5 years in the NFL, they still have to do their 2 to 5 years in the military. So
Right.
they still have that obligation to the country. But if they have that immediate, impact on their life to go play professional sports, let them, bro. Why not?
Yeah.
Why are you so mad, bro? Like, that's what I said. I'm like, why are
Yeah.
you so mad?
No, I agree with your statement. I think he is basically telling any individual that has aspirations of being a professional athlete, don't even look at the academies because one, we don't. Yeah, one, we don't want you to go, and two, you're not gonna go
Right.
to the pros. But I'll stick with what I said. If I am those academies, I'm kind of upset that you put this rule in place. Whether that's the people that are a part in charge of those sports or the academy itself, because I would rather have somebody in that position to fill those roles at some point in time than nobody, and hope that we can get somebody else to fill that spot.
That's what I hope too. And I'm gonna save my next question for our next segment. But with this rule being in place, that transfer portal about to go crazy, I think. But we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about
Mhm.
that next. We're gonna talk about that next in the
Yeah.
next segment. But my final wisdom on this is, I'm so glad that they gave that legacy exception to the guys prior to the 2021 ruling. So that way they can
Mhm.
go ahead and pursue their professional career if they have the talent to do so. That's men,
Yep.
women, basketball, football, soccer, tennis, whatever they want to do. Um, but I am a little upset that this rule is going to hinder everybody moving forward, because it's going to not only hinder the athletes that are already in the academy, but it's also going to hinder the programs as well moving forward in the future for getting these better athletes, these higher profile athletes to come to Army or Navy or Air Force to be able to pursue a better program. Because like you said, these programs are 8 to 10 wins seasons right now, and for the past probably like 4 or 5 years they have been. But moving
Mhm.
forward, without those athletes, these programs are going to drop to 4 or 5 win programs, and they're going to be looked at, like you said, like a homecoming win, an easy win, because they don't have the athletes that these other schools have, because they don't want to go to Army, Air Force, or Navy anymore. So it's gonna be something crazy to see as things move forward, because I think it's gonna hurt the program and the students a lot, and the recruiting a lot. But the students that are already there are going to be mad, and they're probably going to leave. I'm not going to lie, they're probably going to leave if they have aspirations to
Yeah.
go pro. They're probably going to leave these academies. But what you think? What's your
So
final one?
I think this is telling of a couple of things. I've already mentioned one of them as far as what we're about to see as a country. Um, I think it's telling of the downward trend of enlistment for these
Mm-hmm.
particular academies. I also think it's telling of we are gearing ourselves up as a country to be on ready alert, or as Kanye said, DEFCON 5.
For
we're
sure.
we're ready. We're going to be
Mm-hmm.
ready to go at any point in time, especially with what's going on right now in
Mm-hmm.
with Russia and Ukraine. At any point
Right.
in time, it could go south, and everybody on this planet is going to be part of World War III. So I think that's what this bill being passed at this point in time is really telling to me.
I got
I
you.
do think it's unfortunate that they will probably hold everybody, all the cadets that are a part of these academies, their feet to the fire if they in fact do have the opportunity to turn pro.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also will be it will be damning to them.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be hurtful to those academies because they will no longer get those individuals that they probably would have gotten to come to those academies and serve their country and then play the sport as well.
I agree. I agree, bro. 100%. I'm out the door. I ain't gonna lie to you. If I'm Drake, I'm out the door. I ain't gonna.
I think anybody would, but I mean, that's the thing though. If he was offered $5 million to leave and he stayed, how much money was he offered to stay?
True.
Many are saying, as I mentioned earlier, that this is going to be a trend that changes the college football landscape.